Hi, everyone. I'm Ross John Fortune. Welcome to today's GovFocus. The Department of Homeland Security is leveraging technology's rapid evolution to support the agency's immigration mission here in the 21st century. Efficiency, partnerships, data center modernization, these are all critical to the agency's mission. Today, we're going to be discussing how DHS uses data to address immigration, border security, and other mission priorities. I'm joined today by Sunny Bagawalia, CIO of Customs and Border Protection, and Derek Pledger, Chief Digital and Information Officer at Maximus. So let's start talking about these priorities. Sunny, how are CBP and DHS supporting the new administration's priorities like border security?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think the first thing is obviously Department of Homeland Security main mission is to safeguard our nation, and CBP's mission is to protect the American people, safeguard our borders, and also obviously enhance the nation's economic prosperity. So with that, we are absolutely aware, on the job 24/7 at the speed of mission, and technology, is trying to make sure that we can provide support at the speed of mission, meaning we can provide sort of products and services and information anywhere, anytime, on any authorized for any authorized user on any authorized device at that speed of mission. And so I think that is a pretty hefty mission, going at 1,744 locations, processing billions of transactions a day, data exchanges a day, processing trillions of dollars in a year, protecting against all these cyber attempts that are coming at us, while also just making sure at the end of the day, we kind of make sure we again, sort of do this main mission. So we are trying to incorporate new technologies and innovation. We're doing strategic transformation. We're doing tactical operations excellence, and also innovation at the speed of at the speed of mission. So we want to, at the end of the day, we want to make sure these technologies and innovations get them to the front line of our men and women who do an amazing job, every day on the front lines. So we want to use not only cutting edge technologies to support this ongoing innovation, so we can stay with and maybe ahead of some of these evolving mission needs. So, for example, we have on a cloud program, we have sort of got an app tier, the application tier, at a very high percentage in the cloud out of 276 applications that we use to support our mission. But on the database tier, we still need to migrate to the cloud. So any help there would allow us to be one of the agencies eventually, one of the first agencies completely and in the cloud, at a large size scope complexity. So why is that important? Well, we can get that mission done faster, better, more affordably, and more securely for our agents and officers. And as you can see, what you're reading in the news, there's a lot of things that we're doing to keep America safe. So from that standpoint, staying busy, and obviously, the president's priorities and the executive orders, we are absolutely executing them and getting things done.
Derek, I want to go to you about data quality and all the things that Sunny just talked about the speed of mission and modernization. So data sharing, interoperability, these are important things to produce these outcomes. So what are the challenges of getting interoperable, shareable, usable, and quality data across systems?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Sunny already hit on some of the salient points in terms of the speed of innovation, speed of mission, and making sure that you can put data in the hands of folks that need to make critical decisions. I think, we can all agree that data is the new gold in terms of driving toward making critical mission decisions with increased velocity. I believe that where industry and government have had a challenge is attempting to just throw tools or technology at data without having a real data management strategy. So you can answer things like, where is your data? How is your data stored? Is your data tagged? Who needs access? And what are the actual retention policies and the governance around said data, right? I've seen a lot of situations where you can bring in AI or use some cloud native tools to interrogate data or some other type of tool, and then you're surprised when the answers or the efficacy or the results are not good. That's because, AI or tools cannot solve your problems without a definitive data strategy. It's almost like it's garbage in and garbage out. So I think you need a real data strategy before you can think about interoperability across systems. Now, once you have that strategy and you answer some of those questions, I think you can use technology as an enabler to solve those things. And whether it be in the cloud, whether it be in the hands of, an operator that, in Sony's case, maybe at the border or somewhere else, we can answer those. Once we answer those questions, then we can start to think about how technology can increase the speed at which we can provide our operators with the opportunities to make decisions fast. And I think, in DHS CBP's business, making decisions at speed is something that's really critical.
Yeah, Sonny, how do you see that those challenges, and how do you see those solutions coming to those challenges, particularly around data sharing, data interoperability, strategies, those type of things?
Yeah, I think obviously, it's all about the data at the end of the day. I do have to say that because my chief data officer always is very impressed when I say that. And I've been involved with data throughout my nearly 40-year career here. So in various capacities, I've seen different approaches to data. And at the end of the day, data with context becomes information, with experience becomes knowledge, right? And we're all seeking that information available very timely within context and with that experience so that we can actually get to this thing that we need to get done. You want to make sure that we are making intelligence and data-driven decision making so that we can execute our mission better. So I think I obviously look at sort of I'm classically trained as an engineer and a CIO. So one of the things is obviously you have to look at the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data across the life cycle. You also have to look at something called IRM, Information Resource Management, which is data with context across an information life cycle. You also have to kind of make sure that we are looking at from the CIA aspect of things, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You got to look at the cyber threats that are going on right now. So, because there's a tremendous amount of things that people are after. And at the end of the day, they're not after perimeter defenses or networks. They're after the actual data itself, right? So we have to stay ahead of these threats. And these threats are increasing tremendously by several 100% per annum. Like I said, I told you earlier, even though we're transacting up to 50 billion data exchanges a day, we are also blocking about 100 million cyber attempts a day. So the point is, all of this stuff that's happening at scale is literally in our agency is a couple of Fortune 20 companies in one sort of everyday level of traffic that's going on. So we have to first of all make sure that this quality, and there's also something called Information Quality Act, IQA, which is you have to attest to what is that information quality. So these regulations and things, you have to just kind of make sure that there's an authoritative source of that data that can be used for decision making. So in law enforcement, for example, when we're talking about AI and other things, we cannot have hallucination. We got to use data that is absolutely, when you're making law enforcement decision, you got to make sure that is absolutely used in certain instances where there's no doubt how you're using that data. So chain of custody is another thing. So I can go on and on about that. But my point is, we are obviously making sure that we are maintaining the privacy of that data within all the appropriate rules therein. We're making sure all the security of the cybersecurity of the data, or back in the day, if you're truly an information professional, and this is one way to tell, if they use cybersecurity, just cybersecurity, you can tell maybe they're a little bit more newbies. If they say information assurance, that used to be the term of art back in the day. So I think that information assurance back in the day, in terms of that life cycle, we just need to make sure that we are protecting against these committed adversaries who are using advanced persistent threats to target our IT systems. So we stay ahead of that by disrupting these cyber attempts. We want to, but however, on the other side of it, it's all about providing operational data that needs to be done to CBP employees and trusted partners. On the other side of it, obviously, I manage an information technology portfolio that goes against those 1,744 locations, goes against those 329 ports of entry, goes against the 179 border patrol stations, goes against the 75 air and marine operations. And then there are about 100,000 assets in that area constantly, exchanging all that information. But on the other side of it, there's something called operational technology, which is all these planes, boats, drones, vehicles, internet wall, 6 levels of sensors on that. Internet of Things and ATVs, fleet management. I mean, everything has data now, that sensors that need to be incorporated. So now we're looking at OT and IT integration.
We're really fighting a war on two fronts, right? Not just one, not just the wall guard and the things that we protect that perhaps may be internal to our networks, our devices, etc. Because in the open source domain and all of the breaches and how, think of things like Equifax when you're getting individuals' information out in the ether, in the open source domain. APT threat actors are now using that data. They're weaponizing that too. So when Sunny talks about context, you can imagine a world where a threat actor may get access to SSN over here and then an address or some other type of PII, and they can use that together out in the open source domain, not in your network, but then weaponize that to authenticate to get in your network to do something that could be incredibly bad, right? So we have to defend against the walled garden that we keep in our own networks. So we can talk about zero trust and all those type of things, but this idea that you can just build a network wall and keep everything out, it's nonsensical now.
So,
right, we just cannot do that anymore. We need to assume that your networks are breachable, and we need to put capabilities in place to be able to stop lateral movement. So I think that's one of the things that near and dear to me, and what we're doing at Maximus is making sure that everyone assumes that the network is already compromised, and we use identity at the center of everything. So when we look at data, we always think of who needs access to it, what is your identity, do you have need to know, and then every application is point to point. We're no longer in a world where you can just have a VPN or you just go into a particular network and allow freedom of access. I think we're not there anymore. So any thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point here. So I'm glad this is really exciting. About we're riffing on this thing. That's good. I think one of the things I'll just say is zero trust is a big deal here. So we have a zero trust approach, which is never trust, always verify. So that is a new domain of how we're thinking about data, and so that definitely is an interesting challenge for us. And I think we are solving it pretty well in some areas, but we still got a ways to go. Recently, we got the DHS IG report to report to Congress in 2023, and in that report, there are 5 areas of NIST that they identify, protect, detect, respond, recover, right? And I'm glad to report that CBP got the top marks in 4 of the 5 areas. We got 5 out of 5. And in one area, we got a 4 out of 5. But the 2 areas that need a little work is supply chain risk management and data. So data is very hard to. I mean, I can go a whole 1 hour on data alone and what the challenges are. And I'm still learning myself. Our chief data officer is fantastic, by the way. So I think what Derek is talking about, zero trust, is very important. The advanced persistent threat also is a real challenge. Back in the day, I remember, there are some areas with special characters used to have a SQL injection attack, for example.
Right.
And so as an engineer, we knew that, and they were trying to use this to keep that thing going. And then, that was a concern, for example. So there's just too much stuff out there. And we have not even talked about. I was one of the first agencies in our area where we have done PQC, post-quantum cryptography, which means if the adversary is harvesting now and decrypting later, what can we do to protect it? Well, CBP is one of the first to kind of put that out there. And our new secretary, Ms. Christine Nome, has actually talked about that PQC is one of her priorities. So if that's the case, clearly PQC is something that we as a nation and we as a US government and we as a US CBP or US DHS need to make sure that in some use cases, how do we protect that? So we've got one use case already done. We've got a few underway. And the idea is that we obviously have not shown that, and we won't show that to the adversary. But there are certain things that we're trying to do to get ready for PQC when they're harvesting now and decrypt later.
Certainly, I want to build off that point a little bit to talk about efficiency, because I know that is an administration priority. And Derek, I'll come to you about this because certainly regulatory policy, things like that, how can DHS and CBP make decisions that do optimize efficiency while staying effective in their operations?
It's another great question. And Sunny and I can probably riff on this for another 20 minutes, but I'll just make a couple points. I think there's a lot when it comes to IT operations at scale across government or a large corporation. Efficiency is always something that we kind of start with, and I think as a retired Army guy, I think you start with mission first and understanding why you're trying to be efficient. And the reason I think that way is because you can be efficient or have an efficient operation and not be effective, right? And so are you measuring the right things, right? Because just being efficient in administration of a program, the byproduct of that can be a terrible data experience, a terrible consumer experience, a terrible mission experience. Think of, if you have an SLA where you have 5 nines and your application is always up, but the experience of a user is terrible, you still fail, right? So I think the focus on efficiency, we need to take it further, because it's not just about being efficient, it's also about being effective. And then we need to take it past that too, right? Because you can be, if you're efficient, that's great. If you're effective, that's good. But then through your operations, every person that touches your network or touches that mission, there are insights that you need to glean from that so you can turn that insight into action. It's something that Sunny talked about. And data is at the forefront of that. So if you move from efficiency into effectiveness, and then you can turn those insights, those touch points, those connections that you're making in the field or whatever your mission is, then you can kind of have a holistic sort of command and control view of your estate and your mission. So then you can turn those insights into action. And then that can come back from a policy perspective to understand what's happening across your entire state. Should we have a different policy? Are our mission outcomes suffering because we made a decision around technology upstream without that context that Sunny talked about earlier? So I think the conversation needs to go past efficiency now, Ross. It's not just about that. It's about effectiveness. It's about turning insights into action. And that's one of the things that we're incredibly focused on here at Maximus as we support DHS and some of the broader missions across government.
Yeah, I'd agree totally. Well said. I think obviously we are here chasing both, but at the end of the day, efficiency and effectiveness reach to productivity, and we're interested in just getting mission done. So our bottom line is, for example, last 2 years we have stopped 50,000 pounds of fentanyl coming into the country. We have put these measures, all these stats out right on cbp.gov. You can see it. That's protecting the American people. But the larger question is, what else do we need to do to protect more? And so we can always improve, right? So there it is. So, but then how efficient, effective are we? Well, we stop 50,000 pounds. 2.2 pounds can hurt up to 500,000 pills of people. Whatever. My point is, there's a lot there. So there's a lot of partnership in this area. Just that example alone can just tell you what we're talking about here. We process 2 billion de minimis packages, which is $800 or less, that there people are, other countries are trying to get their stuff into the country. And so just inspection of that and checking on, that's big. These are big numbers at that point. These are massive things that we do. I think I view effectiveness and efficiency in terms of first of all productivity and mission outcomes. So I want to get things faster, better, more affordable, more secure. So if that happens, bottom line, then I feel like we're doing a pretty good job. We've got all the different stats, but to me, back to the first thing is, I have a strategy. So strategies, are we doing the right things? And then measurement is, are we doing them right? So the measurement framework is also important to start seeing what you have, and then understanding the context of whether, what questions to ask, right? So in some of my meetings that I do, I have operations calls every day, and one of the things we're trying to do is get away from all PowerPoint and just have dashboards. So the dashboards can now talk about, because then you can have a richer conversation as to what it means, right? And if you have some bad numbers, it may not be bad, meaning that obviously if you keep on doing it for 3 years, that's bad. But if you do it for like a little bit and then you learn from it and you improve, then that's good. That's effective and efficient. So we are looking at that. So we have found empirical data that I can then use to then figure out, oh my goodness, this is what's happening. And then we can find the root cause analysis. And the definition of insanity is, repaving the same cow path and expecting a different result. Well, we're changing that. So to me, that based on data-driven decision making is really changing the game. So we have extensive dashboards. I've got something like 55 to 56 dashboards ongoing. Probably one of the things in government. And the biggest compliment we got was someone in industry said, "You mean these are developed by government?" And we're like, "Yeah." Most of us came from industry as well, but we're not slouches. we have a little bit of calls here, qualifications, and we can hang with you, no problem. So, but we're all in this together. I mean, so I have a badgeless environment of government and contractors all working together in industry, and we're all after the thing. But what unites us, and to me, this is the other part which is hard to measure. Now you're talking about effectiveness and efficiency, is how people gravitate towards the cause, and then they're focused on getting things done.
I want to talk about data center modernization just really quickly, because I do
Yep.
know that is deeply important to the mission and to moving things forward. Sunny, how is that working? How is the data center modernization efforts? How are they? What's the status there, and how's that supporting the mission?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been, like I said, many CIO capacities, and one of the times I was obviously one of the former federal CIOs. I think had the FDCCI, Federal Data Center Consolidation Initiative, and the Federal Cloud Initiative. So I was there when we started all this stuff. And at that time did a first study of how many data centers we have. Everyone started game it like, oh no, this is not a data center, or they would say a closet is a data center, but the other one's not. I mean, just all these weird numbers game, going on. And then we also counted the number of servers. So we did all this stuff in the government. But the challenge I see is that at the end of the day, we also did something called cloud. Nobody knew what cloud was going to be at that time. Platform, infrastructure, software as a service. Well, so data center modernization and that whole thing with cloud has taken off now. So let's say 15 years hence, it is now a thing. It is definitely happening. So we have 276 apps, so about 85% on the application tier in the cloud, and about half of that on the database tier. We still have a tier 4 data center. 1 through 4 used to be the highest. We currently have a 4, but now they've made it 5. So, like for example, these top companies, I'm sure are like a 5. Like at the Apple and Mr. Musk's amazing data center, which is 100,000 GPUs or 200,000 GPUs and all that. So to me, 5 is the best now. We've got a 4. We have, but that data center now, even though it's very redundant, very capable, we want to get completely to the cloud. So if we get resource to finish the last part of the journey, we'd be one of the first large agencies at very large scale, completely in the cloud. What that does is allows us to really get to our mission, focusing on lowering operating and maintenance costs and getting more reliability. So with that, we are definitely focused on and made a lot of progress. We just need a little bit of help to finish that last part of the journey. And we think with that in mind, we also are looking at disaster recovery and continuity. That's another thing we can talk about it at length, that I think cloud gives us a little bit of resiliency. And so with that in mind, we are definitely looking at getting the mission faster, better, more affordably, more secure. And I said more affordably, I did not say cheaper. Affordably, that means you have to have the life cycle cost estimate, because when you do a pay-as-you-go utility, the total life cycle cost may be the same, but what you get from mission effectiveness and all that, you got to put a value on that. There's an opportunity cost associated with not doing it that way either. So outages are getting less and less. We get less outages, less degradation, more uptime, more other things available. And oh, by the way, there's higher quality data being sent out. There's higher quality HQ, high definition video. There's high definition stuff coming from drones. There's coming from different things. And how do you process all that information? We have autonomous surveillance towers, and we've been doing predictive AI for 10 years. AI, that's not the issue. We've been doing that a lot. We have processed 600 million people safely, travelers in this country, with a 99.2% or 3% match rate with the facial biometrics, and even stopped, and with a 2-second adjudication on the back end, with sort of 2,100 imposters stopped. And so all that plus what we're stopping in fentanyl, all that's all using some of predictive analytics and AI. What's new is this generative AI. And so this generative AI is going to be what's really going to be using data center and other kinds of cloud modernization things that'll be just different level.
At Maximus, our operations are fully in cloud, right? We over 3 or 4 years ago, we made the decision that we were going to get out of data centers. Now we have some small pockets where we do support specific customers, but by and large, all of our operations are in cloud. And when you have that journey, to some of Sonny's points, a lot of folks do get caught up in thinking going to the cloud that you're going to save cost. It sometimes is not reality because it's like a utility, right? And when you move to the cloud, you have to be very strategic, very structured, very rigorous about not just doing lift and shift, but lift and optimize, right? How are moving to the cloud? What is that actually going to mean to your mission? Is it better, faster, cheaper? Does the scale help you achieve things that are more critical? Is it speed? What are those things that are actually important? But just doing it just to do it, I think is a failure, and costs can certainly get out of control. On the flip side of that, I think where a lot of CIOs get it wrong is hey, we're doing this to optimize and to save costs. But then potentially the mission could suffer. So there is an opportunity cost, as Sonny talked about, is it may cost you more, but if the mission effectiveness is increased by moving to the cloud, so you can use some native services, that should be something that you're very deliberate about doing anyway, even if it costs you more. That experience on the other side of that, those operators that need to get things done, putting capability in the hands of folks that maybe on the front line to achieve a specific mission. That needs to be a part of the conversation. It's not just about cost, and it's about that insight. It's about those actions. So I think Sonny hit on some really good points there. You just need to be strategic about how you move and modernize, not just, hey, we're going to take these 200 apps, throw them to the cloud. We'll keep our data tier here because we want to protect our data. No, it needs to be a full comprehensive strategy when you do those moves.
I appreciate both your time, and that'll bring us to the end of the program. So I know I learned a ton about data strategy, ICAM, the evolving landscape, all those things. So Derek, Sonny, thank you so much for joining me and bringing your sharp analysis to this conversation.
Thank you very much. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it. And Derek, thank you for your service to our country as an U.S. Army. So I appreciate it. And thank you very much. You take care now, and everyone have a great rest of the day and week.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Sonny.